Hello YouTube, Sidekick here with another guest pilot video today looking at the Su-25. YappyDawg did such a great job on the instrument nav in the base model, I asked him if he could take a crack at doing the autopilot modes in the T, so here he is.
Thanks, Sidekick. And good morning from Mozdok Air Base. One of the nice features of the T variant of the Frogfoot is the Autopilot. The Autopilot has 7 modes, which we will demonstrate today. By default, the modes are engaged by pressing the left Alt key and the numbers 1 through 6. 2 other important keybinds are the disengage and the momentary override. The Autopilot control panel is on the left with the lights to indicate which functions are engaged. As you can see, the labels are in Russian, so maybe Sidekick will be kind enough to add a link to the translated photo in the video description. I don't pay too much attention to it beyond verifying whether the system is active or not. It is important to note that the Autopilot does not control the throttle and won't maintain airspeed. You will need to stay on top of the throttle setting to prevent stalling or seeing your wings get ripped off. This is going to be easier to show than describe, so let's kick the tires, light the fires. Throttle up, release the brakes. Engine instruments are in the green. Airspeed is alive. Passing 200 km per hour and rotate. Now that we are airborne and have settled into a steady departure, we can engage the auto navigation mode by pressing left control 6. As you can see, the autopilot can be quite aggressive, but it is turning to track to the selected waypoint. It will overshoot, but eventually it will get there. With a little help, the autopilot is quite capable, which you can really appreciate on those longer flights. Here we are over waypoint 1, and the autopilot is now turning to track to waypoint 2. If we were finished with the autopilot, we could disengage, but maybe we want to quickly check something on the ground or avoid oncoming traffic, so we can use the momentary disconnect. Once we finish a maneuver, we can release the override and watch the autopilot resume navigating to waypoint 2. The next mode is attitude hold. which I don't find particularly useful, but I will demonstrate so you can decide for yourself. Attitude mode is engaged with left control and 1 and will hold whatever pitch and roll you have set when the mode is engaged. This might be useful for a quick hold while you're checking a map or something, but I rarely use it and I wouldn't miss it if it were gone. A more useful mode is the leveling mode, engaged with left Alt and 3. If you get disoriented, you can use it like a panic button, and the aircraft will recover from whatever attitude it is in and begin flying straight and level. It is also useful when you need to stick your head in the cockpit, look at a map, or set up your ordnance. You don't have to worry about spiraling into the trees if you take too long. Yes, we've all done it. Next is altitude hold, specifically barometric altitude hold, which is engaged with left Alt and 2. This will hold your aircraft at its current altitude using barometric pressure to maintain its height. Because it is using air pressure, like your altimeter, the altitude is referenced to sea level. Note that your height above the ground does not affect the autopilot setting. If we were to continue south into those mountains, that could be a problem, but today is a local flight. Note also that we can turn the aircraft and the aircraft will continue to maintain altitude while banking. Okay, let's try something more interesting. Radar altitude mode maintains height above the ground using your radar altimeter. Below 1,500 meters, the aircraft will climb and descend to maintain a constant height above the ground. We engage this mode with left Alt and 5. The radar altimeter is looking straight down at the ground from the belly and doesn't look ahead, so terrain following is limited. The aircraft can't compensate quickly for rapidly changing terrain heights, so keep an eye on it or it will kill you. It is also a bit rough on the stomach, all this up and down, so it's a lucky thing we fly simulators. Okay, let's settle down and gain some altitude. After the wing leveler, my second favorite mode is the altitude and roll hold, which is engaged with the left alt and 2. With this mode, you can roll the aircraft into a turn and observe a target area or maybe hold a bit while an interceptor comes up to clear the airspace ahead of you. The roll will be maintained and your altitude will be constant so you can focus outside the cockpit and not worry about straying into the trees. Before we go home, I want to quickly show you combat mode. This mode will track towards anything we have targeted with a TV camera. In this case, we have a very threatening tree. While you're fine-tuning the lock, the aircraft will continue to fly straight towards a target at a fixed altitude. Combat mode uses the same keybind as the navigation mode, left alt and 6. If you have a target locked, the autopilot knows to track to the target and not to a navigation waypoint. Well, that's all the autopilot modes. Let's set the autopilot back to navigation mode and let the autopilot take us home. We need to reduce throttle and slow down to the approach speed. Gear down, flaps down. Over the approach waypoint, and now we are tracking into the runway. In landing mode, the aircraft is also descending down the glide slope. The autopilot won't take us all the way to touchdown, but it will get us to the inner marker, which is pretty close. We do need to stay on the throttle, however. The smoother you are with the throttle, the smoother the autopilot will be with the pitch changes. Rough throttle equals rough pitch changes, and as a consequence, rapid speed changes. Rapid speed changes mean you have to change the throttle. You see how this is connected, right? And there you go, safe and sound back at Mozdok Air Base. Just in time for some warm, sweet kasha. Yummy. That's all I got, so now it's back to you, Sidekick.
Thanks, Yappy. That was great. I learned a lot. Learned particularly that I don't use the autopilot modes enough in the T model. You know, if you're a new pilot, you're having trouble landing the T, you could do worse than remember to use the autopilot, especially until you get the hang of it. Anyways, if you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, and that way we can keep them coming. But for now, this is going to be Sidekick and YappyDawg signing off.